Well, today, my name is Dr. Tom Bennett from Kean University. I'm working with Paul Lobauer of Pro Media from Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Today, it's May 23rd, 2001. We're aboard the battleship New Jersey in Camden, New Jersey. We're talking with Mr. James Schatzman, who served aboard the battleship from May 1943 through August 1944. Just to start off the conversation, Mr. Schatzman, just tell me a little bit, how did you get involved with the battleship New Jersey?
Well, I didn't volunteer for sea duty, but I have not met anyone yet who ever did that was accepted. And I was just assigned sea duty as I came out of boot camp.
Boot camp at Camp
Paris Island.
Paris Island, U.S. Marine Corps.
And that was February, March, April of 1943. I was assigned to sea school in Portsmouth, Virginia, at the Norfolk Navy Yard. That's where our Marine detachment had their barracks for sea school training. And from there, I went aboard the USS New Jersey.
Tell us a little bit about your experiences aboard New Jersey. Anything that stands out in your mind? Anything exciting?
Well, I guess the two most memorable things was the Marianas Turkey Shoot, where they put all the ship's lights on to help the returning pilots find their ships. Unheard of in that part of the Pacific Ocean at that time of the war. But the men who were piloting the planes were getting low on fuel as they returned to their carriers. And in order to help them, all the ship's lights were turned on, spotlights. It was just like a Hollywood premiere.
What feeling do you have when you watched this taking place? What was going through your mind?
Very, very concerned about those pilots who were dropping in the water before they could get back to their carrier. And I think for 4, 5, 6 days later, some of our destroyers, destroyer escorts, and any ship available were still picking pilots up floating in rafts after 4 or 5 days. That was probably the most, I guess, exciting period. There were other instances where we had night contact, tracers firing from one ship to another ship, from the Japanese to us, back and forth. And that was quite a sight.
What went through your mind as that was taking place?
Is this 4th of July? It looks like it, but it's not. We're really involved. There's Japanese planes attacking with torpedoes, and the closest any of them got was off the starboard bow of the USS New Jersey, and the Marines were handling all of the 20-millimeter anti-aircraft guns forward of amidships. I was on gun group 7, which was starboard side, right underneath the first 5-inch gun mount on starboard side. And to see that plane heading towards us and somebody hitting him, there's always been a dispute as to whether the 20 millimeters from the Marines got him or whether the 40 millimeters, which was mixed forward, they were all handled by the Navy. There was always a dispute as who shot that plane down.
How far did the plane splash in the water from the ship?
I would guess less than 300 yards.
What was the reaction of the crew when that occurred?
Well, just jubilation. Big shouts went up when the ship burst into flames and crashed into the ocean.
Any other experiences that remain in your mind that are outstanding?
Well, there was an incident where the USS Iowa was in front of the USS New Jersey.
Which is a sister ship of the New Jersey, both
Right.
of the
Iowa
Iowa
was
class.
the first, USS New Jersey was second, and there was a torpedo that passed between the stern of the Iowa and the bow of the USS New Jersey, and you could see it slaking right through the water. So it was fortunate that neither ship was hit. Probably there would have been some Marine casualties had it hit the bow of the Jersey, because that's where most of our battle stations were. And we had two 20-millimeter anti-aircraft guns right on the very bow of the ship. And you'll be talking to Bob Dubell later, who manned one of those 20-millimeter guns.
Tell me a little bit about the training to work on a 20-millimeter gun. What was your position on the gun, and what training did the crew have to undergo?
Each gun group had a non-commissioned officer who was the leader of that particular gun group. I happened to be the captain of that group. I think I said starboard side, Group 7. And my responsibility as captain of that group was to make sure that both of the 20-millimeter anti-aircraft guns were in shape, ready to fire on a second's notice. And my training at sea school, we were involved in taking the weapons apart, cleaning them, putting them back together, replacing parts that we thought might be a problem in case of an emergency. And that was my training background for the actual battle station on the Jersey. At sea school, we also were involved in learning the Navy traditions aboard ship, and which is something that very few Marines ever got the opportunity to serve aboard a battleship. And it was quite an experience.
One side question, how many men were in a 20-millimeter gun crew?
We had 2 gunners, 2 first loaders, 2 second loaders, and 3 ammunition runners. Our ammunition was stored in gun turret, 16-inch gun turret 2. And the runners would go between that gun turret and our battle station, which was on the same deck, same level. And that would be 2 gunners, 2 first loaders is 4, 6, 9 people, plus the non-commissioned officer, who happened in my time to be Sergeant Connolly.
And your rank at the time was what, sir?
Private first class.
Private first class.
First, last, and always.
Any other outstanding features that are in your mind concerning your service aboard the New Jersey? You said you served as an orderly also.
I was never assigned to be the captain's orderly, but the original executive officer, Commander McDowell, one of the nicest people you would ever want to meet in the military service. I was his orderly for almost the entire time I was aboard ship, and we served 4-hour shifts. And we were outside the cabin door at the beck and call of the captain or the executive officer, whatever their needs might be.
After you left the ship, and did you serve in any other units with the Marine Corps?
Unfortunately, yes. I was reassigned in August of 1944. I came back to the States, believe it or not, on the USS Wisconsin as a passenger. And I was given a 30-day furlough and reassigned to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. I was in the artillery battalion down there because of the anti-aircraft MOS. Until, I think I reported there the first week of October 1944, and we were there until February of 1945. And things were getting, well, Iwo Jima was just about over, but they were getting ready for Okinawa. And I was assigned to the 29th Regiment of the 6th Marine Division. And that duty was hair-raising.
Yes, participate in the Battle of Okinawa then.
Yes.
Yes.
And on the final day, I was wounded by a hand grenade and spent a week on a naval hospital ship from Okinawa to Saipan. I was transferred from that hospital ship to an Army MASH unit on Saipan, and I was scheduled to fly back to the United States, or to Pearl Harbor. What had happened was, I don't know if you're familiar with the point system, that discharges were granted if you had a certain number.
Yes.
Well, 2 days after Franklin Delano Roosevelt died, we were at sea on our way, and they dropped the points from 75 to 70, which made me eligible because I had 72 points. And I told the sergeant, I said, hey, I'm ready to go home. He says, no, he says, you're en route to operations of war. And he said, you won't be transferred until you reach that destination. And that was how I come to be in a little longer than the points would have allowed me to get out on. As I say, I was in an Army MASH unit on Saipan, and they had no authority to transfer me except to my outfit, which was in China. And one of Dr. Bowman, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, orthopedic surgeon, he talked to me and he asked me the situation, and when I told him, he said, you know, he says, we're not allowed to transfer you. You're Navy, we're Army. We have to send you back to your unit. So he said, but let me think about it overnight and we'll get our heads together. And evidently they came up with a scheme that rather than send me back to my unit in China, which was preparing for the landing in Japan, he said, we're going to transfer you to the Naval Hospital at Pearl Harbor, Aiea Heights. Mm-hmm. He said, at least you'll be heading in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And the night that I went aboard the ship, or the plane, to fly back there is the night they announced the Japanese surrender, August the 15th, I believe.
You were lucky.
Extremely so.
You have a statement that you'd like to make, sir.
Well, this is what I was going to talk about today at the luncheon we're having concerning, you know, what I remember about the original commissioning date and some things that went on. You know, the Iowa-class battleships played an important part in the war. The Iowa, New Jersey, Wisconsin, Missouri. We came from the depths of Pearl Harbor to the pinnacle of Tokyo Bay, signing the peace treaty. And I guess there's one admiral that we had as a flagship commander. We were the flagship for Admiral Raymond A. Spruance. And if you ever look at any of the news or articles written, it's always William Bull Halsey. I would just like to remind people that Admiral Spruance was a native Philadelphian, and he also used the USS New Jersey as his flagship when he was command of the two task forces. And when I got back to Pearl Harbor in August of 1944, I realized that's the first time my feet had touched land after leaving Norfolk and going through the canal and going through the Marshall Islands, the Caroline Islands, Guam, the Marianas, and then back to Pearl Harbor. And I like to think that Admiral Halsey came aboard the day I left, and I kind of think that was a kind of fair exchange.
I'm sorry.
No, that was, I just wanted to get that in because Marines were important aboard ship.
Final question. How has your duty aboard the New Jersey affected your life in years after your service?
Well, there was always that desire to go back, and there were a few occasions when the ship was mothballed in the Philadelphia Navy Yard. I was able to take my children, take them aboard, showed them where I lived while I was aboard ship, and showed them where we fought our battle stations from. And my kids, you know, we never talked very much about my military experience, but anytime it was brought up, the USS New Jersey was always foremost. And my friends were contacted, and we just, it was, Marines have a certain degree of camaraderie. And my feeling was that this small group of 98 Marines was really a group that stayed together and remembered and thought of each other. My big sadness right now is that Sylvester Allen, a plank owner, was registered with his wife, her sister, her brother, and his wife to be with us for this reunion and come aboard ship today. He was 78 years old and buried this past week. And this is my big concern and why I stay involved, because I think a lot of us World War II are not really going to get too many opportunities to revisit the ship. And I think that's probably one of the last things they would like to do if they ever get the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Been speaking with Mr. James Schatzman, served aboard the New Jersey from 1943 to 1944. Semper Fi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Schatzman, if you could just stay seated for a moment.
Sure.
I'll get the microphone off of you.
Oh,
We're talking with Mr. Robert Dubell. My name is of Prince George Road in Baltimore, Maryland.